The church is called to be an extended family community
with our love for Jesus, uniting us across all other divides.
I am Arabic.
I'm an independent voter.
I am an auntie.
I am an artist.
I am Spanish and Black.
I am a voice of NC4.
We hope that listening to the individual stories and voices of our own family members can build bridges of empathy,
leading to a shared identity and gospel reconciliation.
In this noisy world, thank you for listening.
I grew up in Irvington, New Jersey. Pretty poverty type of neighborhood, but I've never felt like I was in poverty. I was the oldest of 3 boys. My mom raised us in a house where she was raised. So I was raised with my other aunt. So it was all my cousins and all my brothers in one household, and we were like our own pack. My childhood was so much fun. We had so much love, and we had a good time. And we went to church all the time. So that was also kind of worked into it. So we had a really strong foundation. My schooling when I was younger was not the greatest, especially during grade school. And it was about having the best joke, people picking on you. I always had a deep voice, so they were always about Froggy and then the normal kind of going back and forth with the fights. You know, recess was the main thing, gym was the main thing. My focus wasn't on school at all. It was on like literally getting home after school, surviving the day. In my grade school years, there was one white kid I went to school with, and he wasn't even white. He was a Spanish kid, and we called him White Mike. 7th and 8th grade, when I went to Catholic school, I got introduced to different races, a lot of different type of Spanish people, Ecuadorian, Venezuelan, and Puerto Rican and Mexican kids. My teachers cared a little bit more. That's when I kind of blossomed as far as educationally is concerned. We moved out to Pennsylvania, my freshman year of high school. So it was a huge culture shock moving from where I was from to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And then Liberty, it was just like a multi-pot of just like, you know, white kids, black kids, Spanish kids. I'm a married man, which is awesome. I'm married to one of the most incredible women in the world. Kelly is supportive. She pushes me to be better than I am all the time. And we have a son, Josiah, who is not my biological son, but that doesn't matter. He's my son. And I love that he has allowed me to be his father, one, but also be his mentor. I coach his teams. I coach his football teams. I love all his friends. I'm just trying to release every ounce of sports knowledge, being a man, being a Christian, being a black man, onto them so that they can kind of get an image of what they should be when they grow up. The conversation of race really didn't impact me until I got older. When I first got my permit, I was driving up literally just parked in front of our house. And the cop was down by the cul-de-sac where we live. I'm walking towards the house and he's like, excuse me, like, hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And I'm like, I live here. This is my house. And he's like, oh, let me see your ID. Let me see. And the idea of race doesn't even necessarily go through your head. It's just the idea of as a man, am I being disrespected right now? Or when I was at Moravian, it was pretty late and we were, at a couple, house parties. So we're walking back to campus and the cop pulls up on me and is like, oh, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, I'm going back to school. I'm going back to campus. And he's just like, oh, all right, well, let me see your ID. Let me see your student ID. That kind of stuff is run of the mill. It happens way too often. This authority figure or this guy in a uniform can make me prove that I am where I need to be for what? For his validation, for his comfort. It creates such a negative stigma around him because I know police officers. I have police officers in my family, and I know that's not what their job is. I come from a background where my mom and my aunt and my family always told me and taught me about the beautifulness of my black skin. We have never been taught to hate, always been taught to love, but ultimately loving yourself. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. So I have that self-image that was ingrained in me by my parents from as long as I can remember. And then you have a society view of you that contradicts that. And it's almost as if I am trying to, as a black man, get people to understand that I'm just a human. I have American skin, that 3/5 of a human, and that not being made whole is kind of looking right at me whenever I walk out of my doors. And it's just not fair. It's not how it should be. It's so good because I remember a time where this was like taboo to talk about, where you didn't want to have these conversations about race. I just would pray that people obtain different perspectives, get different lenses. If I were to watch CNN or MSNBC, that's only where I'm getting my news from, I'm going to start thinking more on those lines rather than getting a Fox News perspective and understanding where they're coming from so I can form a full opinion. What I talk about a lot with Joe and what I want him to understand is that you are the change. You have a purpose in you that is going to change the world. And it doesn't matter what you look like, who you date. It matters how you are impacting the world. You know, those Joe's age kids get it. They don't see it the same way, and that's good. But again, these conversations have to start to impact these kids so that these situations don't keep occurring. My name is Langston Ross, and I'm a voice of NC4.